Woo! Hey, good morning. It's a Wednesday morning, 6:06 a.m. So glad that you are here. Go ahead and find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And you can always download the Cities 92.9 app. We've got quite a bit of things to get to this morning, so I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to dive right in. Trump says that he's going to reopen Alcatraz, which I think would be super beneficial to states, particularly like this one, the state of Illinois. And I'll get to why here in just a second. But former California sheriff leaves the Democratic Party. Yeah, so the California sheriff, and I don't like saying the word Democratic. I got to get better about that. They changed it. It's the Democrat Party. Okay, so the sheriff from California leaves the party, and he says that he's leaving the party of paid protests, purple hair, and he's joining the party of faith, family, and freedom. These are non-controversial staples of Western culture, faith, family, and freedom. And for some odd reason, the left has made that controversial. And that's why people are leaving the Democrat Party in droves. So we're going to get to this. As well as this, Leroy City Council, question mark, ... This is embarrassing. I guess they didn't post the agenda for their meeting. And people are beginning to ask the question, hey, is this because at that meeting you're raising water rates, sewer rates, and you didn't post the agenda, which is actually in violation of the Open Meetings Act? I wouldn't say that. Actually, the Attorney General, the public access counselor, would have to say that. But maybe somebody from Leroy should file a complaint. You got to post the agendas, guys. So we're going to get to all of that. But in 1972, the federal government purchased Alcatraz, but shut it down after it became too expensive to run. However, according to President Donald Trump, the prison might actually be a prison again for the most worthless people of society. Okay, these are people who, and to a degree, there has to be punishment and rehabilitation. We're talking about people who just deserve punishment and will never be rehabilitated. There are people out there like that, and they're just ruining the environment of prisons. And this would be a great place for people who will never contribute anything but misery and suffering. And I think Alcatraz is a great place for that. Today's show is going to break this down. According to the Post-Millennial, I like to give you my sources, by the way. Here on Conservative Cat, we give you sources, we give you information. Be sure to join the Insiders Club, by the way. If you're not a part of the Insiders Club, you're going to get news first before anybody else. A little bit later in the show, we are going to be talking about the planned Essex housing project because the Planning Commission meeting is going to be tomorrow. You better show up. But yeah, we're going to get to that. But you get all the exclusive information on local news, national news, state news, whatever it is. And it's really easy to join. It's free to join the Insiders Club. You get extra content. Sign up at cities99.com. Sorry. Okay. According to the Post-Millennial, here we go. Alcatraz. President Donald Trump on Sunday called for Alcatraz, the notorious prison and now historical landmark in San Francisco, California, to be rebuilt and reopened as the country's to house the most violent criminals there. He's actually wanting it to be what it is. It's a prison, not like a museum or whatever or landmark. He wants it to actually function as a prison, which I think would be semi-affordable, and I'll get to why here in just a second. Outside of, in 1972, they, shut this down. Well, they purchased it and then they shut it down. We've come a long way. Technology, efficiencies. I think that we'd be able to cut the costs to run this prison just fine. But Trump posted to Truth Social, quote, "Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For far too long, Americans have been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering." So that's what Donald Trump posted on Truth Social. And really, this is symbolism to him. Really, I mean, the value here is the symbolic nature. Like, hey, we're done. And we're going to get to this, the escaping of these prisoners is happening at an alarming rate. So in fiscal year 2023, and there's not a ton of numbers on the escapees, just because it's probably it's not statistically significant, but when you look at it's more than what I had thought. Okay, 303 individuals who were sentenced for escape offenses in fiscal year 2023. So over 300 individuals were escapees. Okay, and that is a 2.4% increase since 2019. Okay, so 2023, that I haven't been able to get any more recent numbers than that, but the most recent numbers I could find, 303 individuals were escape or charged or convicted on escape offenses. So that means 303 individuals nationwide. Okay, so like I said, kind of statistically insignificant, but when you look at it, it's a 2.4 increase from 2019. Now, notably, these people who are escaping from community correction centers, halfway houses. So we've been doing this thing nationally, and it's been kind of a fad, I guess, where they're more like rehabilitation centers and not prisons, and like you can come and go as you please, essentially, and you have like curfews, and this is a halfway house type situation. And they'll escape from those types of facilities, obviously, because you can kind of come and go, and it's kind of like you got to be here for curfew type thing. Those have become really, really popular, and people obviously leave, right? And they're non-secure. They're in non-secure custody because the left, they think that there should be no uncomfortableness when it comes to serving time, and you shouldn't be punished at all. I think it's a blend of rehabilitation. You can't have all rehabilitation. It's a blend of punishment and rehabilitation. So this is symbolic in that it's saying, no, we in America believe that there are violent offenders, and we're not going to put up with, we can still have the halfway houses, but we understand that there are serial offenders who just spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets, and they're never going to get any better, and we're going to lock them up. And we're going to lock up these dangerous criminals so they can't harm anybody anymore. Okay, so this is the symbolism, like, hey, we understand that as America. We understand that there is room for punishment, and Alcatraz will be the punishment. So Trump posted, rebuild and reopen Alcatraz. He also said, we will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, judges that are too afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals. So like I said, this is symbolic. It's been trendy to do these halfway houses, these community correction centers where like you can kind of come and go as you please, and there's no form of punishment ever. And obviously a lot of these people are escaping, and they're not even serving their time that's, usually ordered by a judge in these halfway houses. So this is symbolism. He says the reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice. We will make America great again. And he says we're no longer going to be held hostage by criminal thugs and judges who are afraid to do their jobs and allow us to remove criminals who came to our country illegally. So he's going to do this, and I think that it's great. And I think the symbolism of this is good, because the fact that we had 303 individuals escape, which in 2023, which was a 2.4% increase from 2019, and we've had an uptick in this trendy thing where we don't sentence our criminals to prisons anymore. It's about time that we do something symbolic to say, no, in America, you do get punished if you are causing bloodshed and mayhem in our streets. And I think that today, like I said, present day, it's going to be more cost effective. They probably shut it down because it truly wasn't cost effective. But now we have more efficiencies, and I don't think it's really going to cost as much as it would be to have these people out on the street and destroying America. I think that kind of outweighs the cost of what it is to, I don't know, cart food over to the island, okay, on a boat. I think that it's going to be just fine, cost wise. So you're going to say all of a sudden Democrats will become fiscally conservative, and they're going to be like, "Oh, this costs too much," and it's like, okay, but what's the cost, like, of a life? Okay, of an American life, a law-abiding citizen's life. Okay, one human being and what that person can contribute. Um, they might cure cancer, right? They might do something really great for America, and they didn't get the opportunity to because our criminals weren't removed and punished. So anyway, in the 1850s, Alcatraz, located on a 22-acre spit of rock, was a military fortress and served as a military prison from 1907 to 1933. Alcatraz became a federal prison in 1934 and was shuttered in the 1960s, after 29 years of service. So 1934 shuts down in the 1960s. This notorious names: George Machine Gun Kelly, Al Capone, Robert Strode, the Birdman of Alcatraz, Public Enemy number one, Alvin Karpis. Like, these were the worst of worst society, and they were some notorious inmates there. Reopening Alcatraz, I think it's a genius move. I think it makes a lot of sense. Originally, it was built to house some of the most violent, high-risk inmates who cause serious problems at other facilities, by the way. You're isolated, you're around cold water, strong currents, and it makes it nearly impossible to escape. Like I said, we've seen an uptick in escapees, an increase from 2019 to 2023, 2.4%. And I think that this would be really useful today, specifically for places like Illinois. Okay, and I've got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back because AP, they covered this, the closing of Stateville. Now, this happened recently. This was in September of 2024. There were 400 inmates transferred out of Stateville when it closed via judge's order. 278 of those inmates were convicted of murder, and then another 100 were serving time. So of the 400 inmates, 378 most violent, most of them committed murder out of those 378, but they were serving time for violent offenses. Okay, so they're transferred now from this suburban Chicago lockup, and they were shipped to not top-level maximum security prisons, but they were shipped to mid-level medium security prisons. Okay, typically you send troublemakers, these toughest criminals and the escape risks. Typically you send them to maximum security prisons. Well, they didn't do that. I think that this would specifically help Illinois a ton. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, what do you mean? How is it dumb? I literally just rambled off a ton of statistics. Hey, we're matching today. Yeah, you have your profile picture. I see it right there. You've got the Trump, the iconic photo. Look, I don't, man. I just cited off a ton of statistics. Like, numbers don't lie. There were 303 individuals who escaped in 2023. Now, 303, statistically insignificant when you look at it as a whole of the population, of the, prison population. It's like statistically insignificant, but it's proof, or there is proof, that there is a rise of escapees, and there's this trend of halfway houses, and a lot of those escapees did come from halfway houses or community correctional centers where they're like non-secure it's like a custody type thing, where you're in custody but you're not, because here in America we have decided that we are shifting the tone of the way we treat our criminals, or the way we should treat our criminals, which is punishment and rehabilitation. Okay, some people, you've got to agree with me at least, Brian. There's some people out there that will never be rehabilitated, and they are the types of people, like, I'm all about second chances. Okay, you serve your time, you re-enter society, and you go at it and you give it another try. Okay, but are you for fourth chances, fifth chances, sixth chances? Okay, there's some people out there who will never be helped or will never change. And for those violent offenders who will never change, it's crucial that we lock them up and punish them. And not work on rehabilitation. These are people who are lifers, people who do very, very heinous things. And for example, in Illinois, and I'm going to get to the numbers here, like I said, 400 inmates transferred out of that state-built prison back in September 2024. Out of those, there were 378 who committed very violent offenses. Now, 278 of those individuals were convicted of murder. Okay, so nearly, and this is according to AP News, okay? So if you don't like me, listen to the AP News. This is Associated Press. Nearly 4 out of 5 of those offenders formerly housed at the suburban Chicago lockup were not shipped to top-level maximum security prisons, but rather they were shipped to mid-level medium security facilities, according to Associated Press analysis of the Illinois Department of Corrections data. Okay, employees are not, or they're unconvinced, and they believe that some of these inmates that qualify for max security have been diverted to less secure places, and they are convinced that they are in danger and they are at risk. And the inmates who live and are housed in these mid-level medium security prisons are at risk as well. So this specifically would be a godsend to Illinoisans and to Illinois Department of Corrections staff who are freaked out right now of this risk due to the closure of Stateville. Although not part of the latest transfers, now get this. This is just more proof, icing on the cake here, that we should open up Alcatraz. This is not part of the latest transfers from Stateville in 2024, okay? But there was an offender, get this, who moved to Sheridan Correctional Center, which is in North Central Illinois, from Stateville in November of 2023. And get this, he viciously attacked a prison educator, and this prison educator required facial reconstruction of her face. They had to reconstruct her face because he beat her up so bad. Okay. And this was according to, of course, the Employees Union, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 31. Now, I don't think that Illinois Department of Corrections, I don't think that even American Federation, who knows? I don't know if the AFSCME union for the employees of prisons, or for the staff of prisons, I don't know if they're going to be supportive of the Alcatraz thing because, it's Donald Trump. But if they knew what was good for them, they would be supportive of this thing. This would help them so much. According to AP, they had requested public records regarding at least 2 homicides of inmates since mid-2024. Okay, so there's been at least 2 suspected homicides of inmates. So you've got inmates dying, you've got prison staff dying, or while having their faces reconstructed. And I think that this specifically would help Illinois. We're going to come back and I'm going to unpack this for our radio friends, but I come with the facts, man. I mean, this would bring down our escapees, which has upticked by 2.4% since 2019, specifically for states like Illinois. And I'm sure Illinois is not the only one where you've got these prison closures going on and these high-risk individuals being housed now in these medium security prisons. And you've got these maximum security prison inmates being housed with medium security inmates. You're just begging for trouble. So the opening of Alcatraz would actually be super beneficial because they could just be transferred there. And we're talking worst of the worst, the types of people, by the way, who beat an educator's face in so bad to the point where it's got to be reconstructed. Those types of people should definitely be shipped out. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9 News and Talk, Bloomington Normal. It's the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. Well, I've got the facts, man. You can always comment. The liberals are up and at 'em this morning. You guys can comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can also text me 309-451-9299. We were talking about Alcatraz, and I think that it would specifically help Illinois. It would be a tremendous help to open up Alcatraz to Illinois if the IDOC would, not be who they are and realize that, hey, just because Donald Trump is the guy behind reopening Alcatraz doesn't mean that we have to be against it. Okay, because all the writing on the wall suggests that they should be supportive of the opening of Alcatraz. And here's why. Like I said, the numbers don't lie. In 2023, 303 individuals were sentenced for escape offenses. That's a 2.4% increase from 2019. Now, most notably, I will say this, that of those escapees, a lot of them were from non-secure custody places like community correction centers where there's like a curfew, and then they escape from these correctional centers or these halfway houses. I will say a lot of the escapees of the 303, they are in that type of situation, which further leads me to this point. Trump did this because it's symbolic. We need to get rid of these, not totally get rid of, but these are taking center stage, these halfway houses, these community correction centers, and we're too focused on rehabilitation. There needs to be a balance of punishment and rehabilitation, because there has to be an element of punishment. Prison shouldn't be pleasant, okay? It shouldn't be, these community correction centers, these halfway houses, you get to come and go as you please. You just have to get in by 11 o'clock at night, and there's no disruption to your life at all, and there's no discomfort, and that should be discomforting because it should deter crime. Prison should deter crime, and this is symbolic. Donald Trump opening Alcatraz says, hey, we are not going to handle mayhem in our streets. We're going to punish criminals, and we are taking this ideology that punishment is okay in certain circumstances. For example, the person on his 4th, 5th, and 6th attempt, I'm all about second chances. I'm not about 4th chances, 5th chances, 6th chances, okay? And you also being a violent offender. We're not talking about, somebody who steals. We're not talking, we're talking about people who smash other people's faces in. So let me get to this. AP News, they had approximately, they've got this story. Approximately 400 inmates transferred from Illinois Stateville Prison in September 2024, so this was very recent. Of those, 278 were convicted of murder, and then 100 on top of that were convicted of other violent offenses. Here's the kicker here. Nearly 4 in 5 of these offenders that were transferred from Stateville, formerly housed in this suburban Chicago lockup, they were not shipped to top-level maximum security prisons. Murderers were not shipped to maximum security prisons. Rather, these are troublemakers. These are escape risks. They were housed instead to mid-level, medium security facilities, and that's according to the Associated Press. So fact check me on that, liberals. I know you don't listen to me. Listen to the AP, I guess. And that's all according to the Illinois Department of Correction data. That's what they found out. Employees believe that some of these inmates that were transferred to these medium security prisons, and they should have been transferred to a maximum security prison, they believe that, hey, there's a risk to inmates and staff, okay, because they should qualify for, or they do qualify for max security, and they've been diverted to a less secure place. This is problematic. Although not part of these transfers, the Stateville transfers, and this is according to the AP, there was an instance. It was at Sheridan Correctional Center. That's North Central Illinois, folks. I'm going to get to that here in just a second. And then a little bit later, we are going to get to, because I got to take a quick break. But we are going to get to Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. He is officially registered as a Republican, and he was a Democrat. He switched parties. I'll be right back. So we're going to get to that instance at Sheridan Correctional Center in North Central Illinois. Like I said, this person viciously attacked a prison educator, smashed her face in. And I mean, IDOC should be pro opening Alcatraz. There's no reason why 4, 5, 6 times, and you've committed violent offenses 6 times, and you are an extreme threat to society. There's no reason why we shouldn't ship you to Alcatraz and you stay there and you serve out your life sentence. Okay, there's no reason why. I'm not saying to make it disgusting. I'm not saying that we shouldn't feed them or do basic human decency, okay, but remove them completely from society. And this is symbolic, okay? This is going to shut down culturally. I think it's going to also shift our thinking a little bit on capital or on punishment and the way we combat crime. Because right now we've kind of got this idea where these halfway houses will work or these correctional community centers will work, and you just have to come back and make sure you meet your curfew. Well, turns out none of them do. Okay, none of them actually meet their curfew, and just like they escape these community correctional centers or these halfway houses. And the idea here is that, oh, you're going to be rehabilitated. We're going to rehabilitate you, and in some cases, that is not possible. It's not realistic. And also, you shouldn't exclude punishment entirely. There has to be consequences, and it should be uncomfortable. Prison shouldn't be cozy. Okay, you should be uncomfortable with the fact and sit with what you've done and be removed from society and not free. There's consequences to what you've done. Okay. Let's get to. I do want to get to this Los Angeles County Sheriff. You guys are really going to like this because he says that he's moving over from the party of paid protest, true, purple hair and pronouns, and he's moving over to the party of faith, family, and freedom. These are non-controversial things, but unfortunately, the left has made faith, freedom, and family very controversial. Remember, these are the people who believe that you can club a baby at 9 months. The baby's crowning, and they're going to club this baby. And abortion up to 9 months. Like, clearly, you're not pro-family. Okay, these are also people who believe that although our politicians swear in on the Holy Bible, these are people who are anti-Christian and push things like Trans Visibility Day on a sacred holiday, which is Easter, the resurrection of Christ. Okay, so these people have no respect for faith, no respect for family, and definitely no respect for freedom. And I don't think I need to tell you that you lived through 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, these people have no respect for your freedom to say, no, thank you. I don't want 7 booster shots. The first shot didn't work. Okay. I contracted COVID way more than my unvaccinated friend. So I'm not buying into your booster shot for a 4th time, a 5th time, a 6th time. Okay. I'm not buying into this crap. I'm also not putting one of your face diapers on my face. I'm not putting a mask on my face because it doesn't do anything to stop the spread of COVID-19. And you have the freedom to do that. But they wanted to force you and I'm not kidding you. I went into a Portillo's without a mask. They were going to call the police on me. Okay, that's not freedom. Okay, so these people are anti-freedom. They're anti-faith and they're anti-family. So this guy, LA County Sheriff, he was a Democrat, and he served as the LA County Sheriff from 2020 or 2018 to 2022. He was elected as a Democrat for all of those years, but officially he has changed his party. So we're going to get to that. Plus, Leroy Open Meetings Act requires you guys to post the agenda 48 hours in advance. Of the meeting, and BLN News, they've got the story, they've got the screenshot that shows on 7:30 a.m. Tuesday morning, the morning after the Monday night meeting, there was no agenda posted, and people are beginning to question, hey, what are you trying to hide? Was it the fact that you raised the water rates and the sewer rates? Is that why you didn't post the agenda? Maybe you didn't want people coming out to the meeting to express their grievances about the water quality. I hear Leroy water isn't all that great. I don't know. But if you live in Leroy, let me know. But we're back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I promise I'm going to wrap this story up. It took a little longer than I wanted, but it's important stuff because you need to know, hey, if the IDOC has the backs of their inmates and of the employees within the correction systems, if they have the backs of the people and the safety of society, they should be pro Alcatraz, pro reopening Alcatraz. It just makes sense mathematically. Like I said, there's been an uptick in escape offenses. It increased by 2.4% since 2020 or 2019. Latest numbers I've got are 2023. There were 303 individuals who were sentenced for escape offenses. Anyway, before I took the break, I was telling you a little bit about an offender. Now, this isn't part of the transfers of the 2024 September Stateville closure. They transferred a lot of violent offenders into medium mid-level security facilities, and now employees are saying, hey, these inmates qualify for max security and they've been diverted to less secure places. This is going to pose a risk to not only the staff but also to inmates. So they're not happy. But get this, in November of 2023, now this was a transfer from Stateville to Sheridan Correctional Center. And this is a North Central Illinois prison, okay, Sheridan Correctional Center, and they were transferred there from Stateville in November 2023, this prisoner, and he viciously attacked a prison educator who later required facial reconstruction surgery. Okay, so people like that, I'm sorry, and this might ruffle some of your feathers. They don't get better a lot of the time. Okay, first, second, third chances. Okay, that's what we're talking about. And very violent individuals would be going to Alcatraz. And there have been at least two, according to the AP News, two suspected homicides since mid 2024. But corrections denied AP's public records request for information on those homicides. So homicides of inmates. So inmates dying. The news agency is appealing that decision. So at the end of the day, Alcatraz, I think, would be specifically a tremendous move for Illinoisans, for Illinois inmates, for Illinois IDOC employees, for Illinois society. I think it would be great if we could get some of those very violent, the types of people who, I don't know, cause a prison educator to get her face reconstructed. We take that individual and we put him in Alcatraz. Very simple fix. All right, let's get to this. Yeah, I'm gonna like this story a lot because it's always inspiring to see a Democrat walk away from the party. The left has gone off the deep end. It is it's a very unpopular party. It no longer resonates with the average American. This party and their principles and their platforms, people often go from left to right. It's very rare where you'll see somebody go right to left. Very often you'll see somebody go left to right. And most college students, they go left to right all the time after graduation, and they actually have to pay a little thing called taxes, and they realize, oh, I'm actually a Republican. So one former California governor, or California sheriff, sorry, he's the LA County Sheriff, and he's a former LA County Sheriff. He served from 2019 to 2022, and he was elected as a Democrat every single year he was elected as sheriff. And he said, hey, I'm leaving the party of purple hair pronouns, and I'm going to join the party of faith, family, and freedom. Take a listen.
As of today, if you have cameras, get them rolling. Share this on social media. As of today, I'm leaving the party of paid protests, purple hair, and pronouns.
Okay, kind of hard to hear because it's muffled a little bit, but he's applauding. Everybody's applauding. He said, get your cameras out because as of today, I'm leaving the party of paid protests, There's probably going to be another one, I think, in a couple of weekends or whatever. They keep holding them outside of BCPA, and you'll see like different groups out there, but they're all funded by the same people. They're progressive billionaires like George Soros. These protesters and nonprofit organizations pay people to go out there and protest. So he's exactly right. We see it right here in Bloomington Normal outside the BCPA. These are coordinated, calculated. This is an apparatus. They are paid to be out there every other weekend. That's it. So he said, I'm leaving the party of paid protest, purple hair, pronouns, and I'm joining the party of faith, family, and freedom. So the left claims that they're the compassionate ones, despite, them being against everything that makes this country great, things like faith, family, and freedom. It's not controversial, but the left has made faith, they have made family, they have made freedom controversial, and nothing gets the left riled up if if you say you're a Christian, right? Or if you say, I actually don't want abortion at the 9th month, and I think that that the child is considered a child after 6 weeks. So nothing riles them up more. Or this one's a big one. If you are caught not wearing a mask, and you say, I want to exercise my liberty and my freedom and not wear something on my face, that'll get a leftist riled up. So all these things, faith, family, and freedom, it riles them up for some odd reason. And that's why even some of the most liberal people I know, they are switching. They are saying, enough with this party. I cannot be associated with that anymore. These are things that are not very controversial, things like faith, family, and freedom. These are staples of Western culture. And I can't be a part of this purple-haired, paid protest pronoun party. I can't do it anymore. So Villanueva, that's his name, the LA County Sheriff, his last name, first name, Alex, he served as the LA County Sheriff, like I said, 2018 to 2022, selected as Democrat. He often clashed with party leaders and local officials in LA during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, he refused to close the beaches for 4th of July weekend, despite local public health directives. They said, you better close the beaches and you better enforce this. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not closing the beaches on 4th of July. Are you crazy? It's social distance. You're outside. Dang it. A year later, he pushed back against the indoor mask mandate as well. So in 2021, he was pushing against the indoor mask mandates. I actually had the cops called on me. I was in a Portillo's, and I didn't go in with mask. And this was like 2021, 22. Like, it wasn't at the height of the pandemic. I mean, it was still around. But they were going to call. They did. They called the cops on me. And I just said, forget it. I said, if the cops came and they were like, you're going to have to leave. And I was like, dude, I'm just trying to order a sandwich. And I just don't have a mask on me. And yeah, they are anti-freedom, forcing vaccinated, those who are contracted COVID-19 already, to wear masks indoors did not make any sense. People who are vaccinated, people who had natural immunity, why would you force them to wear a mask? It makes no sense. So here's what he wrote, the LA County Sheriff who we're covering. He says, forcing the vaccinated and those who already contracted COVID-19 to wear masks indoors is not backed by science, and it contradicts the U.S. CDC guidelines. He wrote in July of 2021 explaining his decision for not enforcing the rule, citing limited department resources. If a Democrat from LA can do this, why the hell? There were there were cops who showed up and escorted me and my friend out of Portillo's because we didn't have masks. Like, this guy stood up for what was right. Why didn't our local? Yeah, it's just wild to me. The pandemic was a real wake-up call, I think, for a lot of people. And I think that he's been teetering for a long time, if I had to guess, this LA County Sheriff, former LA County Sheriff. It was a real wake-up call. You can't label a majority of the population non-essential and then put them on house arrest, okay, without backlash. You're going to start to see a lot of... And liberals believed that was all right. They believed that was freedom. Democrats... they were engaged in constitutional violations, and they abused their power during that time, to say the least. Okay, to put it lightly, they abused their power. This is why many people have left the Democrat Party, and this is why it's going to continue to go on. Now, remember, like I said, you don't see it all the time. I've never met anybody who went right to left. Never in my life. Now, you might see college students, okay, they, maybe are apolitical, or they have some sort of religious background, and they stray away from that once they get into these indoctrination camps, colleges, universities. But they'll always come back, and then they'll go back from left to right. But they don't. I wouldn't say that a lot of those children, really, when they go in, they're 18 years old, young adults. I wouldn't say that they're particularly on the right. But they have proven, the left, they are nothing but a bunch of purple-haired freaks on a power trip, and they're authoritarians. And there's nothing more pathetic than that. I do have to take a quick break, but real quick, I want to cover this before we get into the 7 o'clock hour. Leroy, this is interesting. BLNnews.com. You can go check out the story. She's got the screenshot posted, 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. So they had a meeting. The Leroy City Council had a meeting on Monday night. Now, the Open Meetings Act does require you to post an agenda 48 hours or 48 hours in advance to a meeting. Why is that a thing, Kat? Well, it's so the people can go to the meeting and either express their grievances and address the council and address their representation over ordinances and things like that, or water rate hikes. So this has been the question mark. Did they not share that on their website? Maybe it was just we screwed up, or we didn't we messed up and we didn't post it. Somebody was out sick that day or whatever. It could be that, I don't know. But people are asking the question: were you trying to hide the fact that you raised the water rates and the sewer rates that day? Did you not want the public to come and speak to you about this? And people tell me all the time that the water quality, actually, you guys can text me 309-451-9299. Chris, he's saying on the stream, Leroy water sucks. It's full of heavy metals. It's gray, ruins your clothes. Yeah, it tastes bad too, and you can't water the plants with it because it kills your plants. Wow. So I hear the water quality sucks there. And maybe they didn't post the agenda about the water rates going up because they didn't want backlash. They didn't want the citizenry to come out and make their voices heard. So, bottom line, within 60 calendar days, listen up, Leroy residents. If you believe that there was an alleged violation, like I said, allegedly, there was a violation of the Open Meetings Act. I don't know what happened. Maybe Karen was sick that day, and she was the one who's supposed to put it up on the website, right? They're supposed to make the agenda available. So if an alleged violation occurs, here's what you do. You file a request for review from the public access counselor of the Attorney General office, or of the Office of the Attorney General. The public access counselor will review it, or you can actually bring civil action in a circuit court against a public body if you believe that they are in violation of the Open Meetings Act. BLN News points this out. The entire meeting should be void if there was, in fact, a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Yes, that would be the right thing to do. You should need to post the agenda and allow the public to come and voice their grievances about the water rates, about the quality of water, and how they don't want to pay higher rates for water that kills their plants. For example, Chris said it's full of heavy metals, it's gray, it ruins my clothes. He should have been able to go and talk about that with an address, his representation about that. All right, I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Chris, I'm sorry about your water. I'm sorry that sucks. That sucks. I've tasted Bloomington water. That's terrible. This sounds even worse. I don't know. I've never experienced Leroy water. I've got a lot of friends who live out in Leroy, so I'll have to ask a couple of them. Maybe come on the show, right? Chris, I'll have you on the show. And better, IEPA told us we needed to fix it, fix the combo overflow stuff with the sewer. So that sounds like a consolidated sewer system. A lot of municipalities, they haven't gotten off of this consolidated sewer system. Okay, so we've done things in the past and they were dumb. Okay, I won't lie. Okay, infrastructure is dated. Okay, so if the infrastructure is dated, for example, in Bloomington, if you're using lake source water, I think that's just a dated practice. I don't know many municipalities that do this. I'd have to look into that, the number. Most people out west do this. Well, out west, it really doesn't matter. Like there's populated, like Wyoming, right? Montana, they do a lot of lake source water. In Illinois, it doesn't work as well, just because of the climate and it's lake water, right? And like in out west, it's a little bit better, like Montana, Wyoming, the lake source water. And not to mention, you don't have a population of over 100,000 trying to. I don't know how much population Bloomington has at this rate. Hold on, let me look. Bloomington has it's a high density populated area. Okay, and having lake source water, it's just not efficient, and it's dated. It feels dated to me. Same thing with the Bloomington normal water issue. Remember when all the crap like came back up into the houses and in people's basements? It displaced a lot of people. These were consolidated sewer systems. It sounds like if the water's gray, if it smells bad, heavy metals, it sounds like you guys might have a consolidated sewer system. And the IEPA, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, told you guys to fix it. Rain sewage comes up from your drain. Okay, so I didn't even read your whole comment, Chris. Yes, you just confirmed it. If sewage comes up, that means you're on a consolidated sewer system, and it's probably been there for decades. Like I'm telling you, probably 50 to 100 years. Leroy has not updated that system, and it's unfortunate considering the taxation that the average Illinois resident goes through. Now, I'd love to take a look into Leroy's financials, and I might actually built and replaced a new fire station instead. Yeah, so like I said, I'd love to look into the financials of that place. It's expensive. Don't get me wrong, to change the consolidated sewer system, but here's an example of how government is not smart. Okay, they're just dumb, or they're just negligent, and this is why elections matter. Okay, and who represents you in voting has consequences. Not voting has consequences. You've got to make sure you've got some semi-capable people in there. Stow away some money. They get take some of the money and put it towards the infrastructure fund. I mean, I just don't get what's so hard about that. I mean, they've had, that you're not supposed to have a consolidated sewer system. This is dated. It doesn't work. And you would think, at least for the last, and we've known this, and they'll claim ignorance or, we didn't know that the water was bad. If it's a consolidated sewer system, we've known that those are dated. People of other municipalities have switched off of, much like the lake source water from Bloomington. You switch off that and you go to an aquifer, or you go to drills, wells, groundwater, or something that's more efficient. Groundwater, is more efficient in that it actually passes through. It has its own natural filtration system, which is really neat. But for the last 20 years, what the hell has Leroy representation been doing? We've known that consolidated sewer systems probably not the best type of infrastructure, and that's pretty dated. So since 2000, I would say, even 2005, 2008, what have they been doing with the money? They should have been stowing away, and by now they would have enough to replace the whole thing. Let's make sure we keep some money aside, because we've got this infrastructure project that we need to fund. And we'll suffer for from 2008 to 2025 a little bit, but we will definitely be able to replace it all by 2025. That's how this kind of stuff should work. Yeah, consolidated sewer system. Bloomington has addressed that a little bit since that big June flood that came a few years back. They've addressed it, but they're still working on it, and it's still super expensive, and they could have fixed it all by now had not they allocated all kinds of money to the Bloomington Public Library and the O'Neill Aquatic Center, all of that. Woohoo! You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Christy says that the Illinois EPA told us, Leroy, that we needed to fix the consolidated sewer system. If it rains, sewage comes up your drain. And what did they do? They replaced a new fire station instead. Yeah, it's a tale as old as time. Local government not being fiscally smart with their dollars, with your dollars, okay, with your dollars. We see it here in Bloomington, the same thing. Consolidated sewer systems, very, very old, dated, much like, in my opinion, the lake source water. I think that's dated. It only really works in places like Montana, Wyoming, where you don't have these high density populated areas. They definitely need to switch, I would say, Bloomington off of the lake source water, do like some wells or something like that, switch to an aquifer. I don't know. But yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, what have they been doing? So we know that consolidated sewer systems, and we've known this for a long time, for at least a couple of decades. What have they been doing the last 20 years, Leroy, in the representation there? Okay. They've got to stow away some of your money and fix the dang infrastructure, the basic infrastructure, before we do libraries, before we do aquatic centers, the O'Neill Aquatic Center, before we do Bloomington Public Library, before we do downtown Bloomington streetscapes, okay? Same thing in Leroy. Before we do a new fire station, let's take that money and set it aside, and let's start storing away our nuts, like a squirrel. You take some money and let's do a little squirrel fund, and we gather. So if they were to realize, and they should have, and somebody should have, at least in 2008, everybody's known that consolidated sewer systems are dated for quite some time now. 2008, they were to have been stowing away some money for this basic infrastructure, because it's costly to switch your water system from a consolidated sewer system. But they should also be seeking like state grants and things like that. I don't know if Leroy is doing that. I haven't looked at their financials, but you should be stowing away some money. So that way, come 2025, you're like, okay, we've stowed away enough money. We've stored away this fund. And if they're smart, they've put it in a savings. And then you're also getting interest from that, being fiscally smart with your dollars, with taxpayer dollars. Now we can replace the whole system. Common sense, guys. Come on. Oh, man. All right. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. At the top of the hour, we're going to be talking a little bit about woke author who has a message to his kids. If I die at the hands of an illegal immigrant, I won't care about their status. No, this is a woke author, and he says if he's ever killed by an illegal, he won't care about this illegal status. I'll be right back. At least Leroy uses wells and not scummy lakes. Yeah. So, so you could have beautiful clean water if you're using wells. Fish pee. Yuck. Yeah. If you're using wells, and it's such a waste of beautiful water to have that consolidated sewer system, because that's what's they need to fix that. And like you said, the Illinois Empire told us that we needed to fix it, but they haven't yet. Probably because they don't have the money. Probably because they're being financially irresponsible with your dollars, with your taxpayer dollars, and they're spending that on new fire stations, which I would say and argue that is a basic infrastructure. You need to make sure that your firefighters, but it's a smaller town. I don't know what the previous fire station looked like. I'm sure it was needed, but at the same time, it's like clean water or fancy building. I don't know. I feel like the The choice is pretty clear there. Most I don't know. Is it? I guess that they do actually have a taxpayer fund. Most like I'm kind of shocked that Leroy has a fire station that's not volunteer. So when you get into these rural areas, and this is why it's so beautiful, and maybe they should look into doing this, like not having paid firefighters. I don't know the population of let me look into the population of Leroy. I know it's small, but so for example, I lived in Custer Park, and this is a population of 3,000. Come on, guys. So I lived in Custer Park. So let me look at Custer Park, because that would cut your costs by a whole lot, most likely. Okay, that's mm, let's say. Well, I guess that is like 1,000. Okay, Custer Park in 2025, they have a population of 555. I don't know. I've seen municipalities do it with a volunteer firefighter or volunteer firefighters. If they're smaller municipalities, you have volunteer firefighters, or even like private firefighters, right? Private company. Um, I wonder. We lost a good police chief, city manager. My company did computers for Leroy Water. We lost good police chief, city manager. I'm not even sure. Yeah, so 4,500. All right. Yeah, I mean, so what I've seen other municipalities do, it might not work for Leroy considering the population size, but what I've seen other municipalities do, they'll do volunteer firefighters, and that significantly cuts costs. I'd be curious how much the Leroy fire chief gets paid. I'm gonna find this out. Wow. That's insanity. Okay, so the fire chief. Oh wait, no, no, no. That is the okay. So the average firefighter chief gets paid 100, around 100,000. Now I'm looking at. I'm doing this in real time because I'm curious. I gotta stop. The journalist in me is like, ooh, how much do all these people get paid? I'd be curious. Um, who is the fire chief of Leroy? I don't even know. Okay, Jeffrey. I think it's Jeffrey Whitesell, which I saw him up here. I'm not sure. I'll have to look. I'll have to look later. You guys want news. Um, I'm like looking into this, but yeah, I don't know. There's something shady there going on with the fire station. I'd be curious how much the fire chief gets paid. But yeah, there's places to get cut cost. Now, I don't know if it would work for Leroy, and this would have to be something that the constituents decide on. You could probably go to referendum that says, make the Leroy firefighter station, or annex the firefighter station. I've seen cities do this before, where they just do volunteer firefighters. It works out pretty great, especially for rural type areas, and they can cut costs there. And then they'll have more money. So for lower populated areas, obviously, you're not drawing in as much um, tax revenue because they're lower populated areas. So it's hard to pull off these big projects like a consolidated sewer system. But there's places where you can cut costs. If you don't have the money for infrastructure projects like that, then you probably need to cut some of your services. I don't particularly, I'm not super I think that volunteer firefighters, I think that it works out great. um for dense areas, I don't particularly like it, because the chances obviously of a fire go up as you have more people in a city. We do have a killer ambulance service. Kudos to them. Now, something in Leroy that might actually be necessary. I don't know. I'd have to look into how many fires Leroy has had in the last couple of years. If there are a significant amount of fires and it warrants a brand new fire station and brand new fire engines and things like that, then sure. But I have a hard time believing that there's like that many fires in Leroy. I'd have to look into it. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, yeah, I'm not like ripping on Leroy. I think that Leroy is great. I absolutely love Leroy. I love rural type areas. Chrissy says, you should see the shiny fire trucks in the brand new fire station. In some of these rural areas, you've got to kind of consider, or do we have them? I'd have to look into how many fires Leroy actually has and if it would warrant, where can I cut costs? And that's what needs to happen is just the management. Where can I cut costs so that way we can focus on basic infrastructure and making sure that our residents of Leroy have clean water to drink. It shouldn't have heavy metals in it. It shouldn't taste terrible. It shouldn't kill the plants. We need to shift from this consolidated sewer system. So where do we cut costs? Does that mean cutting the firefighter service? Does that mean shifting to a volunteer firefighter service? Which I've seen many rural areas pull off. And I mean, you have to if you live in a rural area now. They do have a population of 4,500. But I've seen it done in municipalities with that type of population before, or kind of. And it works out just fine because you're saving money from providing that service and you can, ensure that your residents have clean drinking water. Okay. But if fires are an issue there, right, but the point is that there should have been a public agenda posted. That's why I brought up Leroy. There should have been a public agenda posted so that way people were aware of the meeting Monday night and they were aware that the water rates were going up and that they could air their grievances. And there should be conversations, discourse happening at these meetings. Hey, what kind of services can we cut? What kind of services can we live without in order to provide our clean drinking water? And it shouldn't have gotten to this, right? They should have been stowing away that money, doing a squirrel fund, right? So eventually they could replace the consolidated sewer system because everybody knows and everybody has known for a long time that consolidated sewer systems, they're just dated. And we've known this for a long, long time. I mean, many municipalities have slowly tried to shift from that. Bloomington is currently doing that right now. They probably could reach their goals much faster if they didn't waste money on things like the Bloomington Public Library, where there's probably about 4 or 5 people a week who go in. I don't know. But I mean, it's you have the library at the touch of your fingertips. I mean, it's a digital age, man. Why are we spending $25 million on a public library? It makes no sense. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's talk a little bit. I want to get to this. Woke author has a message for his kids if he's ever killed by an illegal immigrant. He says, I don't care. So this is a viral video of Ellie Mistel. Maybe you've heard of him before. I've talked about him before on the program. He's making his rounds on social media. This is circulating. He said that if an illegal alien kills him, he doesn't care about that illegal alien status. And he says, I will tell my kids, that I don't care about their immigration status. You guys got to take a listen to this guy. And I'll share maybe another clip or two of him because he's just interesting. Here we go.
Why do I care what their status was when they committed the crime? If you can prove they committed a crime. I say in the book, if I get shot, if I get murdered by an undocumented immigrant, please tell my children I did not care that they were undocumented.
Right.
Why?
Right. Wrong. Okay. Your children aren't going to care that you were murdered by an illegal immigrant because the whole point, the major point as to why this is incredibly insane, this whole illegal immigration issue, is that a criminal alien would not, had they not broken federal immigration laws, the fictitious murder he's talking about here wouldn't have happened in the first place. That's why these are so traumatic and why criminal aliens That's why this is an 80-20 issue, by the way. 80% of Americans agree that we should be deporting illegal immigrants. Okay, so this is an 80-20 issue. In other words, any crime committed by an illegal alien is a crime that should have never happened, period. And, is he really that stupid that he doesn't really understand that, and he doesn't understand that that murder is preventable? Because I truly think that he is that stupid, and I think that he doesn't make this connection that victims, like in Riley's family, they are going to jump to, well, this should have never happened. He shouldn't have been there. They broke federal immigration laws, and they were ignored. Their crimes were ignored, and they were left out to wreak havoc on society. So Mistel, he has, of course, this guy, Ellie Mistel. He's a woke author, I guess. I don't know. And he has a lot of foolish takes. So actually, this is one of my favorites. He says that we shouldn't follow any laws that were passed before 1965. And he claims that they're tied to profits from slavery. Take a listen to this. You guys are really going to like this one. Here we go.
Of constitutional weight or heft to laws passed before 1965, right? Because nobody asked me and nobody asked anybody to look like me. So why should I care what some old white judge and some old white legislature and some old white president decided was right for me? Living under the laws of the people who kidnapped my people and held us in bondage, that's not something they do anywhere else in the world. It's not like South Africa said, like, oh, that apartheid was bad, but you know what? We're just going to, like, clean up some of these laws, and, okay, now we have... No. They were like, take your Boer constitution and put it in the trash. We will write another one. This...
Okay, so enough of this guy. He has also claimed he has a ton of terrible takes, foolish takes. That's just absolute. So you're literally saying to break laws if they were passed before 1965. You're insane. Because I'm pretty sure murder, the law of thou shalt, before 1965, you weren't allowed to murder people. So what? You're not going to follow the law that was passed before 1965 that says that you can't murder people, right? I'd have to look into that when murder was passed, or like, hey, it's against the law to murder people in cold blood. Yeah, but yeah, he's by his logic, he's saying that he shouldn't have to abide by that because it was passed by a white guy. Oh boy. So he is also for eliminating all voter registration laws, citing racism as the reason, because apparently it's racist to, simply verify that you're eligible to vote. Question. I think Lake and Riley's family, they believe that the murderer, should they not care that the murderer was an illegal alien that wasn't supposed to be here in the first place? Because if federal immigration protocols and enforcement been followed, Lake and Riley would still be here today. Emma Schaefer would still be here today of Springfield. The 12-year-old Jocelyn, her family probably also wouldn't dismiss the fact that her murderer was an illegal immigrant. All of these people, their lives were taken way too early, and they were 100% preventable had federal immigration laws been enforced. They would all still be here today, those 3 women that I just listed, and there's probably tens of hundreds more. Immigration status does matter when crimes are committed because Americans suffer due to these woke policies, and they don't have to. That's my whole point here, is the American people don't have to suffer. And we should be enforcing federal immigration laws so they don't have to suffer. And that being said, someone really informed this guy, Mistel, that just because somebody comes from a crappy economy or crappy country, that doesn't automatically make them a good person. And in fact, it probably makes them not a great person. As I talked about yesterday, multiculturalism, it has really no place here in America. Not all cultures are equal. Most likely, if you're coming from anywhere else in the world, most country, or I would say a lot of them don't align with Western culture, and they have no interest in assimilating with Western culture. And it doesn't, that means I'll say it, not a great person. It doesn't make you a great person just because you come from a bad country. Just because you have a different culture than that of somebody of the West doesn't make you a great country, and a great person. And he's too ignorant to comprehend this. That hey, just because you come from somewhere else doesn't automatically make you a great person. And in fact, I would make the argument 9 times out of 10, you probably would do things that we would just, for example, public defecation, sponge bathing in public, exposing yourself, eating unclean food like rats. Okay, that's all acceptable over in other parts of the world. Here it's not acceptable, and we would actually look at those people and say, you're not a good person if you're pooping in the streets. So yeah, worst take, but I'm sure he's going to top it here before too long. I do want to get to this Donald Trump on social media, and I made a Facebook post about this. I think it's interesting how they're saying blasphemy, 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 and this is of course Donald Trump dressing up as the Pope. He didn't actually. This is AI generated. It was a clear joke. Catholics, most Catholics thought this was funny. I would say pretty much all Catholics thought this was funny. The only people who were upset by this and called it blasphemy were the same people who, commit murder at the 9th month, babies, abortion. Right. I wonder how offensive that is to Catholics. Oh, probably very. Most Catholics probably don't necessarily agree with that. But the only people who took issue with this were people who are never Trumpers or, voted for Kamala Harris. They didn't like the guy to begin with. OK, but it's totally false to claim that this is blasphemy. And here's why. In the Bible, blasphemy is always directed against God. So, like their whole argument, they said it's blasphemous that Donald Trump put this out there. Not against human being. Blasphemy can only be committed against God, not against human beings or things. The Pope is a man. Okay, at the end of the day, he's a man. Okay, and I'm about to rub Catholics probably the wrong way a little bit by this, but he is a man, and he didn't die and rise again. So what Joe Biden did on Easter by declaring it Trans Visibility Day, I would argue is more blasphemous in that he did this on a day where Christ, God, we believe in the Holy Trinity, God, resurrected. Jesus was resurrected, who was a part of God. It was blasphemous for him to do that on the day of resurrection. Okay, Joe Biden. Now the Pope is a guy. Okay, he died and he didn't rise again. Okay, so it's quite literally biblically impossible for someone to commit blasphemy when disrespecting the Pope. Okay, you can call it insulting. You can call it wrong. You can say it's slander. You can say it's speaking evil against others. You can definitely say that, but it's just insulting. Okay, it's not blasphemy in that the Pope is not God. Okay, so a picture of himself dressed as the Pope as a joke, by the way. This was a joke. It wasn't like he was actually considering himself to be the Pope, okay, or wants to be the Pope. It was a joke. If you believe that was blasphemous, what the White House account posted, you'd have to hold the belief that the Pope is God. And that's how I know that most of these people who are outraged by this aren't actually Catholic, because actual Catholics understand this, that blasphemy is always directed at God and not against human beings. If it's against human beings, then that's insult. You're just insulting or speaking evil against someone or disrespecting someone. Okay, in Acts chapter 19, where Artemis was worshipped by the pagans, and they believed Paul to have committed blasphemy. He didn't, because guess what? Artemis is a false god. Okay, so yeah, like I said, you can't call this blasphemy. You really just can't, by definition. But we're going to get to it because Donald Trump, he claps back at this reporter, and it is hilarious. So I'm going to be right back with that. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Obviously, I'm not Catholic. But I think even Catholics understand that blasphemy cannot be committed against the Pope. I'm pretty sure. And if they don't believe that, then, you're wrong. Biblically, blasphemy can only be committed against God and members of God. So the Holy Trinity, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God the Father. Okay, so it's quite literally by definition impossible to commit blasphemy against the Pope. Or by disrespecting the Pope in some sort of way. He's not God. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I got to take a quick break. I'm going to refill my coffee. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I do want to get to this morning. I thought it was hilarious when they had shared this, and I, posted it on my Facebook. You guys can find me on Conservative Cat. Just type it in your search bar. People are screaming blasphemy, blasphemy, blasphemy. Like I said, by definition, you cannot commit blasphemy when you show disrespect for a man. It's really like disrespect to God. Okay, so in order to say like Trump commit blasphemy, these people are actually holding the belief that Pope is God. Okay, so it's not blasphemy, obviously, and Catholics don't believe that, right? They don't believe that the Pope is God and that this was actually blasphemous. Most of the people who were outraged by this AI image, which was clearly a joke, Donald Trump didn't post it. It was on the White House account, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And, this just goes to show you he's like you and I, right? Or the people who are running his social media are like you and I in the White House account social media. They're like you and I. They meme, they joke, they do things that are lighthearted, and they're not these stuffy politicians or these stuffy bureaucrats who have no sense of humor. Here's a good rule of thumb, and this is what I love to do. I like to look at the funny thing that Donald Trump posted, wait about 10 seconds, and then take a deep breath, count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then boom! The inevitable overreaction from the left. It's very, very funny. The entertainment value is there. So I love just watching Trump's Truth Social and the White House account, and then they just absolutely lose their marbles. But Trump, he clapped back at this reporter who was treating this like AI generated joke as the most urgent crisis facing the entire United States of America. So, think about how unserious our media is for a second. The fact that she asked this question when there's so many other questions you could ask, like being a reporter. So, just for your background, for background here, journalists, if they're invited, and Trump has been doing this lately, I think he's in the Oval here, he's been inviting them into the Oval and he's been taking questions. For background here, most of the time when there's press conferences like that, you only get about one question if you're a reporter. Okay, so she wasted her one question, and this is how you know the media is totally unserious. She wasted her question on a meme, on a joke. Okay, this is not an urgent crisis facing the entire United States of America. This is a joke. So the White House, they made a post, and they're trying, leftists are trying to say, he's trying to sway the College of Cardinals to deliberate and make him the next pope. And it's like, give me a break. Okay, some Catholics were offended, and when I say that, they weren't offended. Of course, it wasn't anybody who was. Maybe some Catholics were offended, but they weren't pro Donald Trump before. They were anti Donald Trump. And a lot of these people were Democrat politicians and keyboard warriors, and they weren't really Catholics. And these are people who support abortion, by the way, up to the moment of birth. And all of a sudden, I guess you're clutching onto your rosaries here over an AI generated joke. Okay. So a lot of people went on X and they started, screaming at this guy, purple haired liberals, keyboard warriors. And I guess that provoked the media into another round of how could you, Donald Trump? This is not normal. This is a behavior of a dictator. Blah, blah, blah. So as usual, Trump completely nailed it during this press conference. Take a listen.
Some Catholics were not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics. You mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody made up a picture of me dressed like the Pope, and they put it out on the internet. That's not me that did it. I have no idea where it came from. Maybe it was AI, but I know nothing about it. I just saw it last evening. Actually, my wife thought it was cute. She said, "Isn't that nice?" Actually, I would not be able to be married, though. That would be a lot. I'd have to the best of my knowledge, popes aren't big on getting married, are they? Not that we know of. No. I think it's the fake news media that, they're fakers.
So, sir, was about the fact that it was put out on the White House account, even though it was AI generated, it was a joke, it was a meme. Does it at all diminish the substance of the official White House account to have it go out on?
Oh, give me a break. It was just somebody did it in fun. It's fine. Have to have a little fun, don't you?
See, the media, they're humorless, smug people. I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Come back. They're just totally unserious. Like, they're too serious. You're so smug. Get off your high horse, lady. I mean, relax. It was a joke. No, it doesn't diminish what the White House puts out on their social media account. This is a meme. It was very clearly generated by AI. And I think it's so funny. He's like, that would be problematic if I was Pope. I wouldn't be able to be married anymore, which is so adorable. And he's like, he's kind of like a grandfather, you know. He goes, maybe it was AI who put that out there. I don't know who put it out there. He goes, maybe it was AI. And he's like such a grandpa when he's addressing this. And he's like, he just cracks me up. Hilarious. I think it was hilarious. Now, JD Vance, he had a pretty perfect answer as well. I don't know if it was as good as President Donald Trump's answer, but I'll share this with you. Here we go. This is the tweet. Okay, so JD Vance, he says, and hey, be sure to follow me on Twitter if you're not already. But here's what JD Vance says. He says, as a general rule, I'm fine with people telling jokes, and I'm not fine with people starting stupid wars. So Bill Kristol, he's a known never Trumper. He also was, I think he was pro Iraq invasion. I think it was in 2003, something like that. Point is, he's a forefather of never Trumpism. Okay, he kind of created never Trumpism. Bill Kristol. He says, "Hey, at JD Vance, you fine with this disrespect of mocking the Holy Father? As a general rule, I'm fine with people telling jokes. I'm not fine with people starting stupid wars that kill thousands of my countrymen." So yeah, this is like one of those, Nikki Haley types, pro-war types, Lindsey Graham, Bill Kristol, military industrial complex type Republican, and he's a never Trumper, like Adam Kinzinger. Perfect example. Bill Kristol is like another Adam Kinzinger. So that was a pretty perfect response. I don't know. Who do you think is better, Trump or JD Vance? Trump or JD Vance? The roast on Bill Kristol was pretty good. Yeah, Kristol is a rhino. He's a rhino. Why can't I? Here we go. Yep, there we go. We are going to get to a few other things this morning. I want to get to, let's see here. There's so much news. I think I am going to get to this story. I pulled a few things this morning. I think I am going to get to this story here about Walmart. Now, I did mention this the other day, but this is particularly what this means for Illinois. Now, Walmart, we know that they've made the announcement that they're going to try to make it easier for U.S.-based entrepreneurs to navigate the complexities of retail. Oh, and then I could also play this clip of Donald Trump and the dolls, where he says, "You don't need 30 dolls." If I can find the clip. And it's perfect. Donald Trump, he says, "You don't need 30 dolls. You can have 3." And the beauty of this, so there's a reason why Aldi is so I go to Aldi. Aldi doesn't have, in comparison to Walmart, because this is a German company, and Walmart, American, they've sold their souls to China. Okay. Aldi has not. Obviously, it's a German company. They don't have all of these various products on their shelves. You might get the Aldi brand and you might get one other brand. Okay. So that's about it. And people absolutely love Aldi. It's like one of the top. I think that as far as prices, it's the lowest. I shop at Aldi. I like it. And I'm no fan of Germany because they've sold their souls pretty much to Russia because of the green energy crap, and they're relying on Russia for their energy because the green energy crap doesn't work, and they've bolstered Russia's economy by transitioning to all this green energy crap. So no fan of like the Germans. Also, Holocaust. But no, seriously, there's a model. Aldi has figured this out in that, you don't need 30 different, like, why sell your soul to China so that way you can have 30 different dolls or 30 different things of the same. Like, if you go into Walmart, like, there are so many different brands. Okay. Now, if we switch to a more US based manufacturing, especially at first, we're probably only going to see like 2 or 3 brands, right, of this doll. And this is what Donald Trump is trying to kind of convey in this interview with Kristen Wickel. I don't know. I don't really care. She's from NBC News. Smug reporter. I'll play this because I think that their model is so great in that the American people, like, it's all about choices. But at the end of the day, they've got to be good choices. Okay. Just loading up the shelves with crap from China doesn't do anything for us at all. It harms us more than it does, because, some of these toys, and this has been a thing for a long time, some of these toys are made, one, by slaves, okay, child slaves in China. So the human rights atrocities over there are insane. Also, number 2, the products that they use to make these toys, lead paint, that was a big deal about 20 years ago or something like that. Some of these products that they've created are actually bad for the health of children. So I think that in all these products, if you look at the backs of them, they're good products. Less ingredients. 9 times out of 10, you kind of got to look at the ingredients list, but they're better for you. And I think that the American people choose Aldi time and time again. One, because they figured it out, the model. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I do want to get to this story. I want to play this clip of President Donald Trump with this NBC smug reporter, because it deals with what we're going to be talking about today, the Walmart. And I've already talked about this like last week, but what are the effects for Illinoisans? Probably not a ton. It's not going to help us a ton because we have a very highly toxic business climate here in the state of Illinois. That's also according to Andrew Chesney. Despite, Walmart's presence in Illinois, he still thinks that Illinois has a very highly toxic business climate, and one company alone can't fix that. So what am I talking about? Walmart, they announced that they're going to be shifting, and they're going to try to make it easier for US-based entrepreneurs to navigate the complexities of retail and bring the products to the national stage. So prior to this, they've sold their souls to China, and they line their shelves with Temu. I mean, essentially, it's like Chinese crap. Okay. And they've got 30 different brands that are all terrible for you. And, I bring Aldi. It's a German-run company, and they've kind of got the model down. Okay. They have quality product. And I'm not in no way affiliated with Aldi. I just shop there. Right. And there's a reason why, because they've got the model down where you don't need 30 different brands. You need a few brands that people like and that are quality. Okay. And, Walmart, I hope this isn't like a press pop or, just like a, hey, we're doing this, and like they're not serious about it. This comes as President Donald Trump continues to impose tariffs on foreign goods as a way to encourage more investment in manufacturing inside of the United States. Clearly, I think that Walmart here is laying the ground, or like, they're trying to get ahead of this thing because things are very volatile over in China. There are worker protests. There are people jumping off of buildings because they're not getting their wages. They're slave wages, by the way. And there is an uproar over in China because these tariffs, and they're not getting paid. Okay, because they're not selling this stuff anymore, China. because of the tariffs, and they're not importing the goods here as much as they were. And here's what President Donald Trump says, and this is just so golden. We need to get back to this as a culture. I think it's a cultural thing as well. You don't need 30 different brands, Karen, at the store. Okay, you don't need it. You need a few quality products made by Americans, and you need to support America. Okay, you don't need the Temu crap. And it's like we've sacrificed our morality for this consumerism. And this is what Donald Trump is talking about right here, and it's genius. Take a listen.
This week got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls. Because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
When you say they could have $3 instead of $30, are you saying Americans could see empty store shelves?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
Dead.
So this is beautiful because it's talking about consumerism, and I think that we have accepted what's gone on with China in the trade policy there. We've accepted this for so long, and finally we have somebody who says enough is enough. We've accepted this for so long because we've succumbed to the evil that is consumerism. Like, we feel like we need 30 different products at the store, but you really don't, as evident by Aldi. Aldi is actually in years past, I know that they've surpassed Walmart as far as popularity. In polls and stuff, they've actually surpassed these big box stores like Walmart and Target, for grocery shopping. Well, one, their prices are lower, probably because they have this type of model where you don't need 30 different brands of just complete crap, okay? And stuff, by the way, that's created by children, slave labor. Okay. So Senator Andrew Chesney, he said that, this is great, and he hopes it's not a press pop, and that this actually happens where Walmart makes it easier for U.S. entrepreneurs to navigate the complexities of the real retail space and bring their products to the national stage. And I think that Walmart made this announcement because they see the writing on the wall. They're like, we got to fill the shelves with something. Okay, because we're not going to be getting anything from China anymore because of the global markets and like the way Trump has moved them with such intensity. So here's what Andrew Chesney says. I don't think many people are surprised to see these big box stores trying to align with his interest and, quite frankly, where most Americans are, the American interest, by calling for more opportunities for small businesses to compete and get on the shelves at places like Walmart and Target. So it's not shocking to see this, where you're seeing Walmart saying, hey, we have to align with the interest here of the president and also the American people, because that's what we want. We want American manufacturing. We want our investment to be here in the United States and to uplift our economy and not China's economy. He says, quote, but people are right to be skeptical when wealthy companies claims that they care about the average citizen, since their buying habits often suggest otherwise. So up to this point, Walmart, they've filled their shelves with China, and they've bought from China for years now. So of course we're going to have some skepticism here, because are they actually, or is this just kind of like a press pop? I don't know, to make their stock go up. Who knows? Chesney said medium-sized businesses need a fair chance to compete in spaces where they have long been pushed out for cheaper products and looser labor law rules. Okay, so the reason why they're so cheap, the products from China, and why Walmart buys from them and not the American, is because we have labor laws here that we have to abide by, and we have to actually pay our workers. We can't enslave our workers, and that's why Chinese products are so cheap. It's because they have loose labor laws, and they can get away with not paying the wages of individuals who work on, the Nike shoes. Okay. So, quote, Chesney says our foreign partners and adversaries have dumped cheap products into our communities, hollowing out mid-sized and small manufacturing. This is why you don't see it much anymore, especially here in Illinois. You don't see the mid-sized, small manufacturing plants to get the products on the shelves. It's because of the trade deals, not because the American workers can't or don't want to do the job to fill our own shelves. Okay, so the Economic Times, as I said, they're reporting in recent months, very recent months, China has witnessed a surge of worker protests. I mean, to the point where people are like jumping off and protest buildings, and this is kind of insane. There's a little usurping going on in China because they're demanding that they get their wages paid because of these tariffs that have been implemented, and it's really sad. But when you build your economy on a dictatorship, it's very, very volatile. And once there's a little bit of shaking, which is what Donald Trump is going on, it collapses. Okay, that format just collapses. Tyranny does not last very long. If you oppose a tyrant, it takes very, very short amount of time for it catches like wildfire, the usurping of these dictatorships and of tyranny. And that's what's going on here. They're usurping their leader because they are not getting the pennies that they usually get. Okay. And you've pushed them to a breaking point now. So there's no wages, no compensation following a lot of factory closures. So Chesney said that there is a new president, there's a new sheriff in town, and he's interested in American interests, not global interests. And big box stores like Walmart are starting to take notice. And they've had a foreign interest, and this is what Chesney says. They've taken much more of a Wall Street interest, and that's what I think President Donald Trump is trying to correct. Chesney said he's encouraged by the news that Walmart wants to open up additional lanes for small businesses, but the impact for Illinois is to be determined. He says we still have an out-migration population issue here. Producers, even if Donald Trump, pulls this off and we make American manufacturing come back and we start putting our own products on the shelves, and it might be $3, it might be 3 brands, three, and it might be a little bit more. But guess what? There's going to be American jobs here, good jobs, and it's going to really, and what I'm excited for, shift the culture. You're going to have jobs that people feel fulfilled in, not these pencil pushing jobs, not these bureaucratic jobs, these public sector jobs. You're going to have jobs that people actually feel satisfied with, because at the end of the day, hey, I made a product, I put it on the shelf, and it got sold, and there's nothing more powerful than that. Is that satisfaction. But here in Illinois, it's a very unfriendly state. The taxation is absolutely insane, and a lot of manufacturers are going to be leaving the state, especially if Donald Trump fixes this and he pulls this thing off. Illinois is going to be an outlier, I think, and we're going to kind of be the exception if we continue down this path of Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Democrat majority. So there has been a significant out-migration. 300 residents left the state in 2023. This trend has been driven by factors like high taxes, cost of living, job opportunities in other states, according to Illinois legislators like Chesney. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. So there's been consistent polls, I'd have to actually look this up. I want to look at these polls. I think there was a poll in 2023. In recent polls, Aldi consistently ranks high in terms of, in all of these recent polls, they rank high in best value, low everyday prices, and quality products. Okay. So, I mean, I'd have to look into some of the polls. But the model here is what's important. The model is that, hey, we're going to have a few quality products, and you're not going to have this huge selection of, and we're not going to prioritize consumerism. We're going to prioritize things like your money and your time. So they've dedicated even like the grocery clerks, they like scan your thing and they throw it right into the cart, and they try to save time by not bagging your own groceries, and they have you bag your groceries. Okay. They take an anti almost consumerism model in that you go in, you don't have a whole lot of options. You only have about 2 or 3 products to select from, brands to select from, and then you have to bag your own bags. It's not about convenience and consumerism. Okay. This is about low prices, and this is about saving you time in the grocery store so you can go and live life and do other things. Okay. So that's the beauty of this model here. I shop it only. I like it. I like that model. And I feel like, there's going to be a shift in this country where Walmarts are going to look more like all these, but the big thing would be to have U.S. made products. So even in Aldi right now, there's very little like U.S. made products, right? I wonder if they get all of their products from Germany. It's a German-based grocery store chain. I wonder where most of their products come from. Probably China. Yeah, China, United Kingdom, and Germany. Now they do get imports for their baked goods, frozen goods, and canned goods, and bottled goods. Germany, most of it's Germany. It looks like, but they do get it from China. Interesting. Yeah, I've never really looked into it, but that model, I think that's what you can kind of expect, is that there's going to be 3 brands, but they're going to be good American brands, and you're going to be buying that product, and you're going to be putting that money back into the pocket of your neighbor, of your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, whoever works in these manufacturing. You're going to be putting that money back into those small manufacturers and those medium-sized businesses that are creating a good product. So yeah, I mean, we do have crazy labor laws at this point. It's gotten pretty insane, Chris, where, you get pet bereavement days. So if you lose a pet, you get like a week off of work or something like that. And business owners are mandated to oblige, okay, by that mandate, by Illinois mandate. And like I said, Illinois is specifically got something crazy going on here when it comes to labor laws. Like at this point, it's so anti-business and pro-labor. And what they've done is they've manufactured a really poor relationship, and they do this at the housing level as well between landlord and tenant. They've crafted laws to a point where they take the side of the tenants and the laborers, and they just completely crap on small business owners entirely. And you're causing inequality here and like tension. So I would say that in this state, there's a lot of tension between business owner and laborers, and that's manufactured at a state level. As far as OSHA and some of our federal regulations, I think that it's all right. I think that specifically the state of Illinois has gone off the deep end when it comes to labor laws. If I lose my cat, I get like months off of work and paid vacations, right, for losing my cat, pet bereavement days. I've never heard of such a thing. That's crazy. Take a couple of sick days or whatever. But what, you're gonna get additional time off, paid time off for that? You gotta be kidding me. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So I do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Oh, man, we're coming to the end of the show. Be sure to go to cities929.com and click on the Win Caribbean Cruise from Expedia Cruises link, and you're going to find out where we're going to be next. Friday, May 16th, we've got another cruise drawing, a deluxe Caribbean cruise. We're choosing 2 finalists. That's at the Eagles Club on May 16th. And we're going to be at Running Errands. We're going to be at Jack's Cafe. We're going to be at Myrna Tap. We're going to be at Gill Street. So we've got all kinds of stops coming up. You guys are going to want to check out cities929.com. What we do, we draw 2 finalists. You win a prize pack, but then you also qualify for a spot at our grand prize giveaway, which is going to be on June 26th at the new Smash House Tavern on Prospect Road in Bloomington. You got to be 21 years of age to register. We draw 2 finalists at each stop. The first finalist within the first 30 minutes. We do a 2-hour live broadcast, so don't miss any of them and try to win this Caribbean cruise. This is the best giveaway Cities has ever done. Also, Feed the Farmers is back. Feed the Farmers brought to you by Corn Belt Energy, the good guys at Barker Chevy, Compier Financial, Linco Precision in El Paso. And we're feeding the farmers again this year. So this is really exciting to see all the fields plowed and like the dirt is all tossed off and it smells good. I absolutely love spring season, planting season. So nominate a farmer at cities99.com. We deliver freaky fast Jimmy John sandwiches to them while they're working out in their fields and planting. So Feed the Farmers is back. This show, I mean, if you missed any of it, it's going to be archived for you on YouTube. You can go back, but we covered things like Trump saying that he's going to reopen Alcatraz. I think that specifically would help Illinois, being that there was a closure of Stateville. That closure of Stateville, of course, led to maximum security type individuals to be transferred to medium security facilities. And employees are freaked out. They're like, I think that inmates, these max security individuals, they're being diverted to less secure places, and that poses a risk to inmates and staff. I think that opening up Alcatraz is also symbolic, and I think that it would cost less now. Fast forward, I think they closed it, what was it, in the 1960s. It opened in 1934. We have more efficiencies now. Or I think it was, I don't know, 1972, the federal government purchased Alcatraz. It was, I'd have to look into the dates, but ultimately what happened was, they had Alcatraz, but they sold it because it was too expensive to run, or they shut it down as a prison because it was too expensive to run. Fast forward to 2025, I think that we've got efficiencies where we could actually run it as a prison, and we could prevent worthless people of society who never contribute anything but misery and suffering. We could put them there, and it's symbolic, and it says, hey, we're done. We believe in a thing called punishment and rehabilitation, but there is an element of criminality where there's no room for rehabilitation. There's some people who will never be rehabilitated. I believe in second chances. I don't believe in fourth, fifth, and sixth chances, and this is symbolic, and Donald Trump is essentially saying rebuild and open Alcatraz. Another part of the show, which was pretty controversial, Leroy, they didn't post their agenda. Did they violate the Open Meetings Act? Who knows? BLN News reports a screenshot shows that they did not post it, at least on their website, the agenda, and people are raising the question, hey, were they trying to hide the fact that they were raising the water rates, the sewer rates? And a screenshot from 7:30 a.m. Tuesday morning after the Monday night meeting, there was nothing posted. So Open Meetings Act requires you to post the agenda 48 hours in advance. Well, yeah, why would that be a thing? Well, it's because you have to allow for an opportunity for the public to come and air their grievances or to talk about what's on the agenda. If you don't do that, then you're not representing the public correctly. And it could lead to, of course, a request for review by the public access counselor of the Attorney General's office. You can file if you believe there's an alleged violation that occurred. I do have to go for the day, but I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. If you missed any of the show, archived on YouTube. We make that available to you. All I ask is that you subscribe and follow our channel, Cities 92.9. Look it up in your search bar. Bye-bye. Be blessed, and we'll be back tomorrow.